Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Have you ever caught yourself mindlessly scrolling through your phone, only to realize 3 hours have vanished into the void, leaving you feeling emptier than when you started? Raise your hand if you've experienced this. Keep it raised if you felt a wave of shame wash over you afterward. The truth is, you're not alone in this struggle. But what if I told you that your addiction to distraction isn't actually about your phone, your apps, or your lack of willpower? What if the real culprit is something far more profound and far more personal? Carl Jung, one of the greatest scholars of the human mind, believed that every compulsive behavior serves as a messenger from our unconscious. Every time you reach for distraction, you're actually running from a conversation your soul is desperate to have with you. This isn't about weak character or poor time management. This is about the fundamental human terror of being alone with ourselves. Ask yourself this: what happens in the silence between reaching for your phone and actually touching it? What feelings arise in that microsecond of stillness? Most people never notice this moment because they've trained themselves to move through it faster than consciousness can catch up. But in that fraction of time lives the key to understanding your entire relationship with yourself. The moment you stop to examine this pattern, you'll realize something unsettling. You're not seeking entertainment or information. You're seeking escape. Escape from what? From the weight of your own existence. From the uncomfortable questions that arise when the noise stops. From the parts of yourself you've been avoiding for so long that you've forgotten they exist. Jung called this the shadow. Not the shadow cast by your body, but the psychological shadow cast by your consciousness. Everything you've denied about yourself, everything you've deemed unacceptable, everything you've pushed away in your quest to be the person you think you should be. This shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It grows stronger. It becomes the force that drives you toward numbing behaviors, toward anything that keeps you from facing what you've been avoiding. Your addiction to distraction is your shadow's way of protecting you from what it believes you cannot handle. It's a sophisticated defense mechanism that your psyche has developed to keep you safe from your own depth. But here's the cruel irony. In protecting you from your pain, it's also protecting you from your power. In shielding you from your darkness, it's also shielding you from your light. The shadow doesn't just contain your negative traits. It contains everything you've rejected about yourself, including your brilliance, your creativity, your capacity for love, your authentic desires. When you compulsively distract yourself, you're not just avoiding your pain, you're avoiding your potential. This is why surface-level solutions don't work. You can delete every app, throw your phone in a drawer, and commit to living like a monk. But if you haven't addressed the underlying psychological terror of being alone with yourself, you'll simply find new ways to escape. The shadow always finds a way to express itself. Think about the last time you felt truly peaceful. Not excited, not entertained, not stimulated. Peaceful. When was it? If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. Most people have trained themselves out of recognizing peace, because peace requires stillness, and stillness requires facing whatever arises in the silence. Your mind has become a restless traveler, always searching for the next destination, but never arriving home. It's learned to equate movement with progress, noise with life, stimulation with aliveness. But this constant motion is actually a form of paralysis. You're moving so fast that you never have to feel where you are. The unconscious mind, Jung discovered, speaks through symptoms. Your compulsive behavior isn't random. It's a highly sophisticated communication system. Every time you reach for distraction, your unconscious is trying to tell you something. The question is, are you listening? What if I told you that your restlessness isn't a character flaw, but a spiritual hunger? What if your constant need for stimulation isn't weakness, but a misdirected search for meaning? What if your inability to sit still isn't a disorder, but a soul calling out for attention? The modern world has created a collective agreement to avoid depth. We've built an entire civilization around the premise that if we can just keep moving fast enough, we'll never have to face the fundamental questions of existence. Who am I? What do I want? What am I afraid of? What have I been avoiding? But your psyche refuses to be ignored indefinitely. It will find ways to get your attention. If you won't listen to the whisper, it will shout. If you won't pay attention to the gentle nudge, it will create a crisis. Your addiction to distraction is your psyche's way of shouting at you. This is where most people make a critical mistake. They try to fix the symptom without understanding the message. They try to control their behavior without addressing the underlying need. They treat the distraction as the problem rather than recognizing it as a solution to a deeper problem they haven't yet acknowledged. The truth is, you've been medicating yourself with stimulation. Every scroll, every click, every ping is a small dose of relief from the intensity of your own existence. But like any medication, it requires increasing doses to achieve the same effect. What used to satisfy you for minutes now barely registers. You need more content, more stimulation, more distraction to achieve the same numbing effect. This is the shadow of our time. We've created a culture that celebrates busyness as virtue, that equates productivity with worth, that mistakes noise for vitality. We've forgotten that the most profound transformations happen in silence, that the most important conversations happen when we're alone, that the most essential insights arise when we stop running from ourselves. Your addiction to distraction is not a personal failing, it's a natural response to living in a world that has forgotten the value of stillness. But you don't have to remain trapped in this cycle. You don't have to continue outsourcing your peace to external stimulation. You don't have to keep running from the conversation your soul is trying to have with you. The moment you recognize that your compulsive behavior is actually a form of self-abandonment, everything begins to shift. You start to see that every time you reach for distraction, you're essentially telling yourself that you're not worth your own attention. You're saying that your inner world is too boring, too painful, too overwhelming to inhabit. But what if the opposite were true? What if your inner world is actually the most fascinating place you could ever visit? What if the feelings you've been avoiding are actually the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself? What if the discomfort you've been numbing is actually the growing pains of your soul trying to expand? This is the recognition that changes everything. Your distraction isn't the enemy, it's the symptom, it's the messenger, it's the alarm bell that's been ringing, trying to get your attention, trying to tell you that you've been living on the surface of your own life. The shadow you've been avoiding isn't a monster, it's the part of you that holds your deepest wisdom, your most authentic desires, your most profound capacity for love and creation. It's been waiting patiently for you to turn toward it, to acknowledge it, to integrate it back into your conscious awareness. This recognition is just the beginning. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you understand that your compulsive behavior is actually a cry for help from your own soul, you can begin to respond with compassion rather than shame. You can begin to treat your distraction as information rather than evidence of your failure. The question isn't whether you'll continue to feel the pull toward distraction. The question is whether you'll begin to listen to what that pull is trying to tell you. Whether you'll start to see it as an invitation to go deeper rather than a sign that you're weak. Whether you'll begin to treat your restlessness as a compass pointing toward what you've been avoiding. This is where the real work begins. This is where Jung's wisdom becomes not just theory but practice. This is where you stop being a victim of your own unconscious patterns and start becoming the conscious author of your own transformation. The mirror you've been avoiding is actually the doorway to your liberation. But first you have to be willing to look. You have to be willing to see what's actually there instead of what you've been telling yourself is there. You have to be willing to face the truth about what you've been running from and why. The path forward isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about developing the capacity to be with whatever arises without immediately reaching for escape. It's about learning to trust that you can handle whatever comes up when you stop running from yourself. Your addiction to distraction has been serving a purpose. It's been protecting you from something your unconscious believes you can't handle. But what if you're stronger than your unconscious thinks you are? What if you're more resilient than your shadow believes? What if the very thing you've been avoiding is actually the key to your freedom? This recognition is the first step toward reclaiming your authentic self. It's the beginning of a journey that will take you deeper into yourself than you've ever gone before. It's the start of a conversation between your conscious and unconscious mind that will change everything about how you relate to yourself and the world around you. The shadow you've been avoiding isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's been waiting for you to be ready to learn what it has to teach you. And if you're here, listening to these words, feeling the recognition that comes with truth, then you're ready to begin. Now that you've recognized your shadow as teacher rather than enemy, you're ready to hear what it's been trying to tell you. But here's what Jung understood about the unconscious mind that most people never realize. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symptoms, in patterns, in the very behaviors we judge ourselves for having. Your compulsive reaching for distraction isn't random. It's a highly sophisticated language that your psyche has developed to communicate with you. Every time you feel that familiar pull, your unconscious is sending you a message. The question is, what is it trying to say? When you feel the urge to scroll mindlessly, ask yourself, what was happening in your mind just before this urge arose? What thought were you thinking? What feeling were you feeling? What conversation were you having with yourself that suddenly became too uncomfortable to continue? The truth is, your addiction to distraction isn't a character flaw. It's your psyche's way of protecting you from something it believes you can't handle. But what if that something is actually the very thing you need to face in order to become whole? Jung discovered that the unconscious mind operates on a principle he called compensation. When your conscious mind becomes too one-sided, too rigid, too focused on maintaining a particular image of yourself, your unconscious creates symptoms to restore balance. Your compulsive behavior isn't working against you, it's working for you, trying to bring your attention to what you've been neglecting. Think about the last time you reached for your phone when you weren't actually looking for anything specific. What was the quality of the silence you were trying to escape? Was it empty silence or full silence? Was it the silence of boredom or the silence of anxiety? Was it the silence of loneliness or the silence of overwhelming emotion? Each type of silence your unconscious drives you to escape reveals something different about what you're avoiding. The restless reaching for stimulation when you're bored isn't about needing entertainment. It's about your terror of emptiness. Your fear that without constant input, you might discover there's nothing substantial at your core. The compulsive checking when you're anxious isn't about staying informed. It's about your need to feel connected to something larger than your own racing thoughts. Your desperate attempt to find evidence that you're not alone in your worry. The endless scrolling when you're sad isn't about finding comfort. It's about avoiding the depth of your own feeling. Your fear that if you actually let yourself feel the sadness fully, you might drown in it. But here's what your unconscious knows that your conscious mind has forgotten. You won't drown. You won't disappear. You won't cease to exist if you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. The very fear that drives you toward distraction is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of your own strength. Your psyche is trying to tell you that you're stronger than you think you are. Strong enough to handle boredom without needing constant stimulation. Strong enough to sit with anxiety without needing immediate relief. Strong enough to feel sadness without needing to escape it. Jung believed that every symptom contains within it the seed of its own healing. Your addiction to distraction isn't just showing you what you're avoiding, it's showing you what you're capable of facing. It's your unconscious mind's way of preparing you for a greater level of consciousness. When you feel the familiar pull toward mindless consumption, your shadow is actually asking you a question. Are you ready to be present with what's actually here? Most of the time, the answer is no, and that's okay. The shadow is patient. It will keep asking until you're ready to say yes. But what happens when you finally say yes? What happens when you choose to stay present with whatever arises instead of immediately reaching for escape? This is where Jung's concept of active imagination becomes crucial. Instead of being passive victims of our unconscious patterns, we can become active participants in our own psychological transformation. The next time you feel the urge to distract yourself, try this. Instead of immediately giving in or immediately resisting, ask the urge itself what it needs. Treat it as a messenger rather than an enemy. Ask it, what are you trying to protect me from? Ask it, what do you need me to know? Ask it, what would happen if I stayed present right now? You might be surprised by what emerges. Your unconscious has been trying to get your attention for a long time. When you finally listen, it often has quite a lot to say. Sometimes the message is simple. You're tired. You need rest. Sometimes it's more complex. You're avoiding a difficult conversation you need to have. Sometimes it's profound. You're afraid of your own power, your own potential, your own capacity for greatness. Jung understood that the unconscious mind contains not just our personal history, but also what he called the collective unconscious. The patterns that drive us toward distraction aren't just personal, they're archetypal. They're ancient patterns that have been playing out in human consciousness for thousands of years. The seeker archetype drives your endless scrolling. You're not just looking for content, You're looking for meaning, for purpose, for something that will finally satisfy the spiritual hunger that lies at the core of your being. The performer archetype drives your need for likes and comments and shares. You're not just seeking attention, you're seeking recognition, validation, confirmation that you exist and matter in the world. The victim archetype drives your consumption of negative news and dramatic content. You're not just seeking information, you're seeking confirmation of your worldview, evidence that supports your fears, justification for your cynicism. But here's the revelation that changes everything. These archetypal hungers aren't wrong. They're not character flaws or signs of weakness. They're legitimate spiritual needs that have been misdirected. You are a seeker. You do need recognition. You do need to understand the world around you. But you've been trying to satisfy these needs in ways that can never truly satisfy them. The seeker in you isn't looking for more content. It's looking for more meaning. The performer in you isn't looking for more likes. It's looking for more authentic connection. The part of you that consumes negative content isn't looking for more information. It's looking for more understanding. When you recognize these deeper hungers, you can begin to feed them in ways that actually nourish you, rather than depleting you. You can begin to seek meaning in your own life, rather than in endless streams of content. You can begin to perform your authentic self, rather than a curated version designed to get approval. You can begin to understand your world through your own experience, rather than through other people's interpretations. This recognition is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, rather than who you think you should be. The process of integrating your shadow, rather than being controlled by it. The process of satisfying your archetypal hungers in ways that actually feed your soul. But individuation isn't comfortable. It requires facing parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It requires acknowledging needs you've been denying. It requires admitting that the person you've been trying to be isn't the person you actually are. Your addiction to distraction has been preventing this individuation process. Every time you reach for numbing, you're avoiding the discomfort that comes with growth. Every time you escape into stimulation, you're postponing the conversation between your conscious and unconscious mind that needs to happen for you to become whole. The algorithm that feeds you content isn't random. It's a mirror reflecting back to you what you unconsciously seek. If you're constantly shown content that makes you angry, ask yourself, what is it about anger that you need to understand? If you're constantly shown content that makes you angry, ask yourself, what is it about anger that you need to understand? If you're constantly shown content that makes you sad, ask yourself, what is it about sadness that you need to feel? If you're constantly shown content that makes you anxious, ask yourself, what is it about anxiety that you need to face? Your feed isn't just showing you what you want to see, it's showing you what you need to see. Your unconscious has been using these algorithms to deliver messages to your conscious mind. The question is, are you ready to receive them? This is where Jung's concept of projection becomes crucial. Everything that triggers you in your external environment is actually showing you something about your internal environment. The people who annoy you most are showing you aspects of yourself you haven't acknowledged. The content that disturbs you most is showing you fears you haven't faced. The stories that captivate you most are showing you possibilities you haven't embraced. When you scroll past something that makes you feel angry, ask yourself, what is it about this that I recognize in myself? When you watch something that makes you feel sad, ask yourself, what is it about this that reflects my own unprocessed grief? When you consume something that makes you feel anxious, ask yourself, what is it about this that mirrors my own unacknowledged fear? This isn't about taking responsibility for other people's behavior. This is about taking responsibility for your own reactions. This is about using your emotional responses as information about your inner world rather than evidence about the outer world. The moment you start to see your distraction patterns as projection patterns, everything changes. You stop being a passive consumer of content and start being an active interpreter of your own psychological material. You stop being a victim of your own unconscious and start being a student of your own psyche. Your compulsive behavior isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. It's your unconscious mind's way of showing you exactly what you need to work on, exactly what you need to face, exactly what you need to integrate in order to become whole. The restlessness you feel isn't a problem to be solved, it's energy to be channeled. The emptiness you feel isn't a void to be filled, it's space to be inhabited. The anxiety you feel isn't a symptom to be medicated, it's information to be processed. When you stop seeing your symptoms as enemies and start seeing them as teachers, when you stop treating your compulsions as character flaws and start treating them as communications from your unconscious, when you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to understand yourself, everything begins to shift. Your addiction to distraction has been preparing you for this moment. It's been showing you exactly what you're capable of avoiding, which means it's been showing you exactly what you need to face. It's been revealing the depth of your fear, which means it's been revealing the depth of your potential courage. The shadow you've been running from isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to complete you. It's trying to show you the parts of yourself you've been denying so that you can integrate them back into your conscious awareness. It's trying to make you whole. This revelation changes everything about how you relate to your compulsive behavior. Instead of shame, you feel curiosity. Instead of resistance, you feel willingness. Instead of judgment, you feel compassion. Instead of trying to control your symptoms, you start trying to understand them. The path forward isn't about eliminating your tendency toward distraction. It's about transforming your relationship with it. It's about learning to listen to what it's trying to tell you instead of immediately acting on what it's asking you to do. It's about using your compulsive urges as doorways into your unconscious rather than as escape routes from your consciousness. Your psyche has been trying to get your attention for a long time. It's been using your addiction to distraction as a megaphone, amplifying the message until you finally hear it. The message is simple but profound. You are ready for more. You are ready to face what you've been avoiding. You are ready to become who you actually are. The question isn't whether you'll continue to feel the pull toward distraction. The question is whether you'll start listening to what that pull is trying to tell you. Whether you'll start treating your restlessness as a compass pointing toward what needs your attention. Whether you'll start seeing your compulsive behavior as your unconscious mind's way of preparing you for conscious transformation. Now that you understand what your psyche has been trying to tell you, the real question becomes, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Understanding is just the beginning. Transformation requires something far more challenging than insight. It requires the courage to consciously experience what you've been unconsciously avoiding. Jung called this conscious suffering. Not the unconscious suffering of being trapped in patterns you don't understand, but the conscious choice to face what you've been running from. This is where most people stop. They love the insight, they appreciate the understanding, but when it comes to actually sitting with the discomfort they've been avoiding, they retreat back into familiar patterns of escape. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here. Listening to these words, feeling the recognition that comes with truth. You're here because some part of you is ready to stop running. Some part of you is ready to turn around and face what's been chasing you. The truth is, your distraction is costing you your life. Not just your time, but your authentic self. Every moment you spend escaping from yourself is a moment you could have spent becoming yourself. Every hour you spend avoiding your inner world is an hour you could have spent inhabiting it. Every day you spend outsourcing your peace to external stimulation is a day you could have spent generating peace from within. Ask yourself this. If you stopped running from yourself right now, what would you find? What feelings would arise? What thoughts would emerge? What truths would you have to face? Most people avoid these questions because they're afraid of the answers. But what if the answers aren't as terrifying as the avoidance? The path of conscious suffering isn't about torturing yourself. It's about developing the capacity to be present with whatever arises without immediately reaching for escape. It's about learning to trust that you can handle whatever comes up when you stop running from yourself. This requires what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold paradox, to contain contradictions, to be present with conflicting feelings without needing to resolve them immediately. Most people can't tolerate ambiguity. They need everything to be either good or bad, right or wrong, comfortable or uncomfortable. But life isn't that simple, and neither are you. You are simultaneously strong and vulnerable, wise and confused, peaceful and restless. You contain multitudes. Your addiction to distraction has been preventing you from experiencing this complexity. It's been keeping you on the surface, where everything is simple, where you can avoid the rich contradictions that make you human. The first step in reclaiming your authentic self is learning to sit with whatever arises when you stop escaping. This isn't about meditation or mindfulness in the popular sense. This is about developing the warrior quality that Jung wrote about. The courage to face your own depths without flinching. When you feel the familiar urge to reach for distraction, try this instead. Place your hand on your chest and ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? What am I avoiding right now? Don't try to change anything. Don't try to fix anything. Just notice. Just be present with what's actually here, instead of immediately seeking what's not here. This simple practice will reveal something profound. Most of the time, what you're avoiding isn't actually that terrible. It's just unfamiliar. You've trained yourself to equate unfamiliar with dangerous, discomfort with emergency, stillness with death. But unfamiliarity is where growth happens. Discomfort is where transformation occurs. Stillness is where you meet yourself. Your shadow has been protecting you from feelings it believes you can't handle. But what if you can handle them? What if you're stronger than your unconscious thinks you are? What if the very thing you've been avoiding is actually the key to your liberation? This is where Jung's concept of active imagination becomes practical. Instead of being a passive victim of your unconscious patterns, you can become an active participant in your own transformation. You can begin to dialogue with the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. The next time you feel restless, instead of immediately seeking stimulation, try talking to your restlessness. Ask it what it needs. Ask it what it's trying to tell you. Ask it what would happen if you just sat with it for 5 minutes without trying to escape it. You might be surprised by what emerges. Your restlessness might tell you that you're bored with your life, that you need more challenge, more meaning, more authentic engagement with the world. Your anxiety might tell you that you're avoiding a difficult decision, that you need to face something you've been postponing. Your sadness might tell you that you're grieving something you've lost, that you need to feel the full depth of your caring. This dialogue with your inner experience is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the parts of yourself you've been rejecting, the process of becoming authentic by acknowledging all of who you are, not just the parts you think are acceptable. But individuation isn't comfortable. It requires acknowledging aspects of yourself you'd rather deny. It requires facing truths about your life you'd rather avoid. It requires admitting that the person you've been trying to be isn't the person you actually are. The part of you that seeks endless stimulation isn't wrong for seeking. It's wrong about where to look. You're not seeking content. You're seeking contact. Contact with your own aliveness, your own passion, your own sense of purpose and meaning. The part of you that scrolls mindlessly through other people's lives isn't wrong for wanting connection. It's wrong about how to find it. You're not looking for more information about other people's experiences. You're looking for permission to have your own experiences, validation that your own life matters, evidence that you're not alone in your struggles and desires. The part of you that consumes endless streams of entertainment isn't wrong for wanting pleasure. It's wrong about what actually brings pleasure. True pleasure doesn't come from passive consumption. It comes from active engagement. It comes from creating rather than consuming, from expressing rather than suppressing, from being rather than seeming. When you recognize these misdirected hungers, you can begin to feed them in ways that actually satisfy them. Instead of seeking stimulation through consumption, you can create stimulation through contribution. Instead of seeking connection through observation, you can create connection through participation. Instead of seeking pleasure through entertainment, you can create pleasure through authentic expression. This shift from consumption to creation, from observation to participation, from entertainment to expression, is the essence of reclaiming your authentic self. It's the difference between living your life and watching other people live theirs. It's the difference between being a character in your own story and being a spectator of other people's stories. But this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through small, consistent choices to turn toward yourself rather than away from yourself. It happens through the daily practice of choosing presence over escape, awareness over avoidance, feeling over numbing. Every time you feel the urge to distract yourself and choose instead to stay present, you're strengthening what Jung called the ego shadow axis, the connection between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, the bridge between who you think you are and who you actually are. This isn't about perfection. You will still feel the pull toward distraction. You will still sometimes choose escape over presence. But the difference is that now you'll be conscious of the choice. Now you'll be able to ask yourself, am I choosing this because it serves me, or am I choosing this because I'm avoiding something? The goal isn't to eliminate your tendency toward distraction. The goal is to transform your relationship with it, to use it as information rather than compulsion, to treat it as a compass pointing toward what needs your attention rather than as a force that controls your behavior. When you develop this capacity to be present with your own experience without immediately seeking escape, something remarkable happens. You start to recognize that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are not your urges. You are the awareness that observes all of these phenomena. You are the space in which all of these experiences arise and pass away. This recognition is profoundly liberating. It means you don't have to be controlled by your thoughts, enslaved by your feelings, or compelled by your urges. You can observe them, learn from them, dialogue with them, but you don't have to be defined by them. Your authentic self isn't found by eliminating all the parts of yourself you don't like. It's found by developing the capacity to contain all the parts of yourself with awareness and compassion. Your restlessness, your anxiety, your sadness, your anger, your joy, your passion, your fear, all of these are valid aspects of your human experience. The shadow you've been avoiding isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that holds your deepest wisdom, your most authentic desires, your most profound capacity for love and creation. It's been waiting patiently for you to turn toward it, to acknowledge it, to integrate it back into your conscious awareness. This integration is what Jung meant by wholeness, not perfection, but completion, not the elimination of your difficult aspects, but the conscious inclusion of all aspects, not the absence of shadow, but the friendship with shadow. When you befriend your shadow, when you stop running from the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, when you develop the capacity to be present with whatever arises, something magical happens. You stop needing external validation because you're validating yourself. You stop seeking meaning outside yourself because you're creating meaning within yourself. You stop outsourcing your peace because you're generating peace from within. This is what it means to reclaim your authentic self. Not to become someone new, but to remember who you've always been underneath all the conditioning, all the adaptation, all the attempts to be who you thought you should be, rather than who you actually are. Your addiction to distraction has been preparing you for this moment. It's been showing you exactly what you're capable of avoiding, which means it's been showing you exactly what you're capable of facing. It's been revealing the depth of your unconscious patterns, which means it's been preparing you for the depth of your conscious transformation. The restlessness that drives you toward constant stimulation is actually the energy you need for authentic creation. The emptiness that you've been trying to fill with external content is actually the space you need for internal expansion. The anxiety that you've been trying to escape is actually the excitement of your soul preparing for growth. This reframe changes everything. Your symptoms become your strengths. Your compulsions become your compass. Your shadow becomes your teacher. Your addiction becomes your awakening. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. You need to be understood, to be seen, to be acknowledged in all of your complexity. You need to stop treating yourself as a problem to be solved and start treating yourself as a mystery to be explored. The path forward isn't about controlling your behavior. It's about understanding your behavior. It's about listening to what your psyche is trying to tell you instead of immediately trying to make it stop talking. It's about developing a relationship with your unconscious mind based on curiosity rather than fear, cooperation rather than control. This is your invitation to step into the arena of your own consciousness, to stop being a spectator of your own life and start being the protagonist, to stop running from yourself and start running toward yourself, to stop seeking yourself in external experiences and start finding yourself in internal exploration. The moment you stop outsourcing your peace to external stimulation, you become the author of your own liberation. The moment you stop avoiding yourself, you start discovering yourself. The moment you stop trying to escape your life, you start living your life. This transformation isn't just possible for you, it's inevitable. Your psyche has been preparing you for this awakening your entire life. Every pattern you've struggled with, every compulsion you've battled, every moment you've felt lost or empty or restless has been preparing you for this recognition. You are ready to come home to yourself. Your authentic self has been waiting patiently for you to stop running. It's been sending you messages through your symptoms, breadcrumbs through your compulsions, invitations through your very struggles. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your real story. The story of who you become when you stop running from yourself and start running toward yourself. The story of who you are when you're no longer afraid to be alone with yourself. The story of who you discover when you finally come home to yourself. Subscribe if you're ready to continue this transformation. Comment below and tell me, what pattern of avoidance do you recognize in yourself? What is your psyche trying to tell you? What are you ready to face? Your healing journey matters. Your awakening matters. You matter. The arena of consciousness is waiting for you. Your authentic self is calling you home. Are you ready to answer?